about to tell us all the power the states hold. Now review, who created the states? So this delegation of power to the states comes from the people. It says that then the state of Great Britain is and ought to be totally dissolved, and it is as free and independent states they have. This is the power the people have delegated to their states upon the state's creation. Full power to levy war, conclude peace, contract alliances, establish commerce, and do all other acts and things which independent states like Great Britain, France, or Germany may of right do. This is the power that Arkansas holds today. This is how you were created, and this is who you are. Now, your federal supremacist friend will try to tell you that I am wrong, because Arkansas was not part of the first 13. Problem is, that's not historically accurate, legally accurate, or politically accurate. You see, there's a doctrine called the equal footing doctrine that was recognized even in the Articles of Confederation, that the equal footing doctrine says that every state that enters the Union enters on the same footing as the first 13, and Arkansas, here's your footprint. Your federal supremacist friend might try to tell you, well, that maybe is who Arkansas was when you created Arkansas, but when you joined the Union, you surrendered your power. I'm happy that some of you are laughing, because it is ridiculous. It's not politically accurate, historically accurate. It's not legally accurate. Let me ask you a question. How many of you are familiar with a sovereign government named Germany? Some of you don't know Germany. Yeah, okay, good. Just so I know. Didn't Germany join the EU? So let's all fly over to Germany, and we'll hold a town hall meeting. We'll explain to the German people and their chancellor that they are no longer a sovereign government because they joined the EU. How do you think the German people are going to take that little bit of news? Not well, right? So why did the people of Arkansas accept it? Arkansas was created with greater sovereignty than Germany could ever imagine. Arkansas was created under the principle that all men are created equal and endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights. Germany was created under the principle that kings gave out rights. How is it that we, who are created under greater sovereignty, accept greater servitude? Illegally. Maybe because we haven't been teaching the right things for a very long time. This is who you are, Arkansas. Now this delegation of power, this list of power is very important building block, so keep this in mind as we move forward and we talk about the nature of the Constitution. The nature of the Constitution, meaning what is it? What kind of document is it? And if we know what kind of document it is, we know how to apply it and the law that needs to be used in its proper application. Well, the Constitution is a contract. It is a legally binding contract. But in reality, it's something better than that. Because our framers don't refer to the Constitution as a contract, they refer to the Constitution as a compact between the states. And a compact is even better than a contract. You see, a contract is a legally binding agreement between sovereign people. And when I say sovereign people, I mean in the eyes of the law. You have achieved the age of legal consent. For example, can your 15-year-old create a legally binding contract? No, because he's not sovereign in the eyes of the law. He's still subject to his parents. Well, a compact is not an agreement between legally sovereign people. It is a contract between legally sovereign governments. Governments that are sovereign in the eyes of the law. Let's go back to our building block now. What was the only sovereign governments that existed prior to the creation of our Constitution? The states. Since the Constitution is a compact between sovereign governments, it must be in a compact between the states, which means the states are the parties to the contract. What is the structure of the compact? How does it work? Well, the first basic structure is this. The states are the parties to the compact because they are the only sovereign governments that exist who created this agreement. Now, we have been teaching this wrong for over 150 years. Somebody's going to try to tell you this is not quite accurate because in reality, the Constitution is an agreement between the people and the federal government. That is not true. And you can show that to be false with one simple fact. Let me ask you this question. Was the Constitution ratified by popular vote of the people? No. Since the people did not ratify the Constitution by popular vote, it cannot be an agreement of the people. How was the Constitution ratified? By the states, by the representatives of the states that we call delegates at the convention. It is an agreement between the states. Somebody might try to tell you that the Constitution is an agreement between the states and the federal government. That is a temporal impossibility. When did the federal government exist? Only when the Constitution was ratified. The federal government is the product of the contract. If we had not ratified the Constitution, the federal government would not exist. Can we all agree with that? You cannot be a party to a contract if you are the product of the contract. You cannot sign the contract into legal being if you do not exist until it is signed. And once we eliminate all these possibilities, the only remaining possibility is the fact that the states are the parties who created the Constitution. Well, since the states are the parties to the compact, and the compact created the federal government, we also have to admit then what? The states created the federal government. Everybody see how that works? Because the central government is the product of the Constitution created by the states created the federal government. How can the creation be superior to the creator? When they created the federal government, the states created a limited central government. They enumerated its specific powers, and then they did the most important thing they could have ever done. They reserved all other power to themselves. So the next question becomes, which power was delegated to the federal government? We know from the 10th Amendment that certain powers were delegated to the federal government, and what was not delegated to the federal government was what? Reserved to the states. So what power was delegated to the federal government? Well, I've got good news for you. You don't have to file a Supreme Court lawsuit and have a justice tell you. You don't have to get the opinions and go with a majority opinion of your legislators. Because the father of our Constitution already told us. How many of you heard of a guy named James Madison? That's his nickname, the father of the Constitution. This is a document James Madison wrote we refer to as Federalist Paper 45. He says the powers delegated. Now this word is very, very important, this word delegated. By the proposed Constitution to the federal government are few and defined. Those which are to remain in the state governments are numerous and indefinite. The former, meaning the powers delegated to the federal government, will be exercised principally on external objects. That's how our founders referred to foreign affairs. And then he named the powers: war, peace, negotiation, and foreign commerce. Now wait a minute. Didn't we just see that list of power somewhere else? Where did we see that list of power? Being delegated to the states by the people, right? War, peace, contract, alliances, establish commerce, and do all other acts and things which independent states may of right do. So we delegated that power to the states. But Madison is telling us that war, peace, negotiation, and foreign commerce was delegated to the federal government. So who is delegating power to the federal government? The states. We delegated it to the states. The states created the Constitution, which created the federal government. The states creating the federal government delegated a certain limited portion of their power to the federal government. Are the words delegate and surrender, are they synonymous? Are you sure? Well, now give yourselves a hand, because you now know more than the Supreme Court of the United States.